So, this is our first Saturday event where we have a guest artist and art-related topic this month and next month. We're super excited to have Abe Max. Abe has been somebody I've known for 25 years or more.
Since I was like that tall.
Yeah. So long time ago I had a crush on Abe's older sister, but that
Who didn't, other than me?
Right. That didn't work out, but what did work out is a long-term friendship and admiration of Abe and just the skill set that this human brings to the world. Abe is a writer, a thinker, a visual artist, a podcaster, a mentor to the next generation, traveler, builder. He's building his own dream house right now that he designed. Farmer, just like truly, literally a Renaissance man type of person. That's an overused term. Abe is truly that. So we're really happy to have Abe, so please welcome him for our first Saturday.
Thank you. And thank you. How did I get here? I was raised in the wilds of Oregon by erudite wolves. That's what my wife would tell you. And she's correct in some sense. And it's true that I was raised in the wilds of Oregon, about 24 miles from a town of 100 people. And so life in nature and on a farm allowed me a lot of opportunity to observe nature and to really integrate that experience of quietude into how I operate in the world. I had a long-standing love of drawing. I was one of those kids who was constantly in a sketchbook, and an early, around the age of 4, adoption of a lifelong love of reading. I read a lot. I read in a great number of fields of study and fiction, and that informed my trajectory quite a lot. Over the years of saturating myself with so much information, I was at a place where that information was not leading me in any real clear direction on how to integrate this internal knowing of my place in creation. What does that mean about me? This ability to garner all this information, to come up with really smart-sounding answers, weren't leading me to questions that I felt were necessary to ask. And I had some very foundational moments in my life that led me into deeper discovery there. And quite likely some very real and difficult adult situations as a child. Who here has tried magic mushrooms? A few of you. Who here has tried a shamanic dose of magic mushrooms? For those of you who don't know what that is, that's considered to be 5 grams of magic mushrooms. Now, I've moved on in my trajectory to not need them in my life, and part of that is because I, in one sitting, sat there and I ate, one at a time, an ounce of Amazonian Teacher cubensis when I was about 16. An ounce is about like that of these things, and 5 grams is about like that, just to put it in perspective. And I went through a process in that of bringing in the words that we hear so often, like, the sins of our father shall be visited upon the son. I leaned into that in that space. I went, oh, I really was affected by his story, his actions and behavior over time, and the dissonance within his word not matching his actions and behavior. That was one of my major takeaways from that, is like, how do we bring our word into alignment with our actions and behavior? And so it led me through a deep study of transactional psychology and neurolinguistics and a bunch of other things that informed my art. And who here is maybe familiar with a guy named Korzybski? Anybody? So Korzybski was fairly foundational in transactional psychology, which simply put is the way that we exchange information both in physical terms, like I just gestured to you as an offer, a gift, or these types of things, and how it is that we structure our linguistic patterns over time, and how that shapes the relationships that we build. And he identified a pattern in language that I found very interesting and very important, and that was is and are. What do they do to our language? I could say, this is just a painting. What does that do? Anybody? What does that do?
Well, the word just minimizes it.
Yeah, it diminishes it. That's for sure. Good catch. It's called a transitive disjunctive. It's a big fancy word for something that diminishes or distances, puts a kind of a mental block towards wanting to go into that subject. Is identifies objective fact. And so when I say that is a painting, that is an objective fact, but it's also subjective truth that it's a painting to me. It might just be a bunch of splotched color on that, and what is it that gives that thing meaning? It was a really foundational question for me. And over the process of my discovery and learning, I found that, like I said, the tools of reading other people's thoughts fell short of answering inward questions of generative creativity within myself. And so during this questioning of that process of garnering all of this story of other people's relationship with it, I found Jung's Red Book. Anybody familiar with Jung's Red Book? He went through an alchemical process. It's what I discerned through reading that book. And that alchemical process was really digging into his own shadow work through dream. And he had some very interesting techniques. Some of them were visual techniques that were pulled out of writing about his dreams and about the symbology of his dreams and about the color that was coming up in his dreams and the historic context of his dreams. And he wrote these presentations of what he was talking about through his discovery of himself within that context in 3 different modalities. So first person, second person, and third person. I'm falling short on remembering the exact terminology of which kinds, but he was speaking with totally different syntax and language to describe these different states, to differentiate and have a conversation with himself. Yes?
What is the difference between there's first and third?
That's what I said. I don't want to get hung up on the specifics of that particular thing. We can dig into that afterwards.
Okay.
Point being,
What's the third one?
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
First, second, and
third person participle, I think, or something of that nature. We can dig into that. Point being that he used these very interesting techniques of language and word to inform the imagery and subject of his craft at discerning himself. And that art form was largely in mandalas and things like that, but they were very interesting to me. And what it described was a process that I could use to really get at the meat of the questions that I had. And so I started really digging into that space. A mentor of mine, Greg Paul, said something very interesting to me and to the people that he was working with. And that was that creation, God, whatever you want to call it, wants us to have what we desire. In actuality, creation gives us what we desire. And it's a lack of clarity in ourselves that leads to these desires that come about in our lives that we see as something that happened to us, right? And so he said something to the effect of, if I truly wanted to know, I would. So therefore, that must mean that I don't know. I must have a desire to want to know. And so that desire to want to know fuels that impetus to dig deeper into it. So I went on a fast of external reading material to see what it was in me that was the breadth of my experience measured with my ability to perceive in the moment, and to really become present with the observation of what was happening around me. And so I, in that process, found that it was necessary to alchemize the past experiences. So you have here the mushroom experience in learning how to fall freely without grabbing onto those past relationships that we have to external stories and our own traumatic stories and those things. That was a really powerful process to learn how to let it to being. Literally, being is disallowed by our over-attachment. That's not to say we do away with them, but our over-attachment to those things. And so learning to fall free allowed me to plumb those depths without a preconceived notion of what I might find and what I expected. Because what I expected would color the depth of how far I could delve into, the darker parts of shadow that are those things in us that have arisen over time that cast a shadow within the light that is all around us all the time. So I wanted to get behind those objects and by their relationship with the light shining on them, see the shape of them, see the breadth of them, see how to integrate them and dissolve them in myself, which is this alchemical bridge where we go into the depths to bring it back. And that's that transmutation. You've often heard the phrase turning lead to gold. And that could be seen visually and kind of metaphorically as a bridge. And that bridge is that transmuting this dense, gross material of our physical embodiment, story, and relationship to everything that occurs in this progression of history into the gold of being really present and fully in the experience of this moment, which is when you come to that middle point in that is what often is termed the chapel perilous. And the chapel perilous is that dissolution of an egoic state of mind where subject and object, meaning the subjective fact, and the reality that this is, in some sense, a vibratory thing that has, over time, habituated within our collective experience to be called table, right? And that's a very awkward and confusing place to be that many people don't come out of. And so moving through this other realm of losing the conceptual matrix and coming into a new one is kind of this metamorphosis, this rebirth that allows us to move along that bridge to really own those parts of ourselves that we may have not wanted to look at prior to that. And to bring that knowledge and through real process, what becomes wisdom back to people like you in these kinds of settings. And I think that's the real power of the alchemical journey as an artist, is to be able to not just paint pretty pictures, to engage better questions about the nature of our experience in this creative journey. And that creative journey comes up all over the place. It's painting, it's interacting with lovely people as you're walking down the street, it's that journaling that you do in your quiet time, digging through the dirt, it's planting a seed in the garden that grows into a tree that you might not see the fruits of, right? And it's that tree that you might not see the fruits of that was really coming out of that, my main impetus to sit with and really come into fruition, to plant that seed that I may not be able to see the fruits of for future generations. And that is coming into a coherence with the word. And the word, abracadabra means with my word I create, right? And so the substantive quality of digging into the depths of that comes through attending our word most readily. It's not the only way there, but most readily when we look at our own stories that we tell ourselves and really dig into how that's structured, we can go beyond what the words are saying to where they came from and how it is that we ascribe meaning to those things. And that gets into the realm of symbol and color and those things that then become the painting. And so that further painting is called Upon the Waters, and that's coming to terms with our own power and influence within the world with our word, and how flippantly I have, and many people do, use that word and that creative power to little effect other than causing more confusion. And so when bringing it all back into alignment within ourselves and really owning that, so that you can know when it comes out of your mouth that you're creating something, and you have the choice to create something beautiful that informs other people's trajectory and search for deeper meaning for themselves, which is that place that I began. It's that quietude of nature, of sitting in nature, getting your feet in the dirt and grounding, so that you can really learn how to listen. And I'm still learning how to listen. Ask my mom. We talked about that last night. And yeah. Well, you know, like I said, it's a journey. It's a journey towards more clarity, and that journey leads me not to clearer answers, it leads me to more refined questions. And the art of the question is what I seek to discern within painting and within sculpture and within the work I do with others in the mentoring space. I have found some really great tools to dig into that inform all aspects of my life. I am a certified and lifted mindset coach. And what that means is mindset, simply put, is the stories we tell ourselves. And so by getting, like I said previously, by getting those stories down on paper, we can look at them. And in looking at them, we can start to see how those words influence our emotions. And when we see how those words influence our emotions, we can start to see what that does to our physiology, to our bodies, embodiment, and start to bring that emotional and that mental into alignment together. And it's really a powerful process that I've learned a lot about myself through, and it's been really transformative for others. And that's like the outcome of when you go into that painting in the back there is called ego dissolution. And that is not to say to do away with the ego. That is to say that to dissolve it to such an extent that you can become the observer of it and use it as a tool, like this picture of a hand holding forks. The ego can be viewed as many different things. To me, it's an aspect of myself. It's not separate, and it's a very useful tool for negotiating things like a bear coming up on me in the woods and how to respond. It's a way of presenting myself so that I can transactionally deal with the ins and outs of the world and people and things. And it's really useful. Is that where my thoughts come from? Is that where my inspiration is derived? I think not. In my discernment, there is something that watches that and sits in stillness. And when you are able to step back from it, Krishnamurti said it really well. It's to become the still point in the center of a dynamic tumult. Those words and stories that make up our habituated process of how we derive meaning in life are a tumult for most people. They're moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and there's no space and clarity. And once you can see it as this torrent of information and be in the middle of it in stillness, all of that is accessible. And you can pull from it and derive and look at where that meaning was derived and make it useful in a quietude that allows one to have real interaction, or they're all real interactions, more fulfilling interactions with others through the art of life, of living. And I see no difference between the art of painting and the art of communicating and the art of being in stillness and the art of having a garden and tending it day by day and discerning which things are weeds and which are medicines, because usually they're the same thing. It's a shift of perspective, right? And I am really in love with this journey towards knowing in a deeper and deeper relationship with myself, and it has informed and deepened my relationship with others in ways that are profound and afforded me the space and clarity to see my value in spaces like this, going into mentoring the people, this next generation, who may actually be able to sit under that tree that I'm planting. And bear and enjoy the fruits of that. And we're in a time where it's very confusing which way's what, and what our identities are, and who we are fundamentally. And to be able to go into those spaces with the youth and engage in painting with them. I was one of the shop stewards at a place called the Dodeca Art Farm for many, many years. And one of the things that taught me was that everybody who came in those doors, and this was associated with the Oregon Country Fair, so it had a lot of people in and out of the doors during the event. And one of the things that taught me was that everybody that I engaged and talked to in that had creativity in them. They had something to say. What they didn't know, that I actually could help them with, they didn't know how to approach it with a technique that allowed them to succeed and have a vision of what it meant to succeed within time, within space, and within the resources that we perceive that we have in actuality. And so I got to teach people how to navigate the space of using a table saw. These are spiritual journeys. These are like, they bring up a lot of fear in us, and that fear that is brought up by that fast-moving blade with no guard on it is a great inroad to look at the spiritual journey that we have about facing our fears and learning to navigate that, so that it is so they can be transmuted from debilitating to liberating, right? And so I was able to teach people process, and through the lens of process, help them to discern better questions about what that process means for the life they live. And it was very, I love that space. I am glad to be doing it more. Where I've stepped into with this understanding and this comprehension that I've come to in myself, in wanting to be of greater service to others through the power of word and story, and the way that image and identity and all of those things in art and in literature and in all around us, fundamentally I've found that the clearest lens for that for me is actually law. And so I've delved deeply into the foundations of law and where it comes from, how it comes about fundamentally out of basic observations of creation and of the natural world, and becomes codified in our relationships through transaction, economics and commerce, and then into the habituated ways in which we engage in commerce for more and more complex interactions. And I'm really enjoying teaching people about that process so that they don't feel so disempowered within it, and it frees them up to have more space and clarity for creativity in their own lives. So again, the word, inroads of it's like when that authority figure comes up to you and he goes, "May I see your license your license, please?" And we have stories that come up. Maybe we got pulled over and we got a big fine, and it took us like months and months to untangle it and pay it, and we have all these traumatic stories that come up out of externalized authority. And so these are the table saw, the externalized authorities. These stories are the things that trigger our emotional body and fear that get in the way of being able to sit down at an easel and put paint and brush to canvas, or pick up a chisel and make some man glitter, sawdust, out of a piece of wood, or sit and write that novel that you've been saying that you need to write for years and years and years. How many of you guys have used the word should in your lives? You're shoulding on yourself. Okay, so who has an I should statement? Anyone? No one? You have an I should statement, Renee? That comes up for you?
Lots of them. I should be more productive. I should be better at the computer.
Okay, so
better at social marketing. They're just endless.
let's pick one.
I should be better with the computer.
Okay, so describe the energy that creates in you. It's a great nonverbal representation. Hey, GJ.
Yeah, it's oppressive. It's like it's like strangling, and it doesn't help anything get anything done. It doesn't create the openness and expansiveness to actually do the thing or learn the thing.
Yeah.
It just shuts it all down.
Yeah. Where do you feel it in your body? A core issue? Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate that feeling. 1 being at ease, 10 being a difficult feeling. Yeah.
9.
A 9? Cool.
9 to 11.
Cool. Yeah. Change should to could. Say it. Let's try it.
Could be better with the computer.
Describe the vibe of that. What changed?
Mellows it out for sure. Mellows it. So it feels cooler instead of red, orange. It tastes down to blue, green.
Where do you feel it in your body now?
Down here.
Yeah? A little bit
Starting to just.
ease out.
I can be better at the computer.
Cool. What's that do?
Updating and shoots off the top of my head.
Cool. Where do you feel? You feel it in your body at the top of your head?
It's just this
Excellent. Just rate that feeling. 1 being difficult. 0. Right on. You're so you see my point. Yes?
I just want to throw out, I should clean the floors.
I should clean the floors. Yeah. What describe the energy that it creates?
Dismay.
Dismay. Yeah.
I don't want to. Why do I have to clean the floors?
Right.
Why can't I afford to hire somebody to clean the floors?
It brings up a whole slew of other aspects. Where do you feel it in your body?
Oh, somewhere in the lower heart.
Yeah. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate that feeling. 1 being low.
Worse every day.
Let's deal with right now.
So it's definitely an 8.5.
An 8.5? 8.5!
Right.
Do we hear 8.5, 8.5, 8.5? We're going 7.5, 7.5. So
Then I changed it to I should.
change it to I could.
Could do the floors, but I'm not going to.
But that's another transitive disjunctive, by the way.
I can. I know I can.
So what changes between one and the other in physiologically for you? Does it move?
Well, if I say I can do the floors, it's more like I'm setting a goal, which I've had for a long time.
Yep. So let's try one more thing. I can clean the floors because.
I can clean the floors because I'm the only one who likes to clean floors. I'm the only one that's going to do it.
Okay. So does that bring on a right responsibility in you?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
do I want to honor my need for a clean floor or just live with it?
Or live in a, no offense, a pigsty. So you can see how my journey with playing with my words, literally, helps your mind have something to do while also allowing you to focus on emotionally where that what was an amorphous thing, where it is. It gives it residence in your body so that you can bring that emotional energy back in and start to integrate it more effectively in a very useful way. And there are deeper levels of this integrated practice that I'll be speaking on the 5th of April here with a full workshop on the methodologies and tools that people can actually take away and use in their lives in perpetuity. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope to see some of you there. Where are we at on time?
It's about 20 minutes till the pigs get cake.
Oh, nice. So I think this is a beautiful time for everybody to know that I do enlifted coaching. If you feel like that's story work is something that you want to do and engage in, reach out to me. There's a free 30-minute consult. My website is on that little sign over there. And one moment. And the free workshop on the 5th here. You all know where this is, obviously. You made it. I'm so happy you did. And I encourage you guys to look at your words, see what they do like when you're reading them out and about. Just look at them and go, what is that emotional response that I have to that? Is it accurate? If I change a word or two, what does it do? It's a really interesting practice. It's very powerful and really informative about.
Are you talking about things that you say in your head or things that
Both.
you say to people?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, because the things that you say in your head, who's the most important person to you? And what are you saying to yourself? I say things to myself that I would never in a million years say, even to my brother Gabe, who's here. I wouldn't say to him. I wouldn't say this to my worst enemy. And I talk to myself in ways that are just ruthless. We all do that to some degree, I think. And by attending that, by actually putting your attention on it, you can start to negotiate that space. And I highly suggest getting it out on paper and looking at it, because a story trapped in the head tends to stay there. And there's no space and clarity in a fast-moving story, and there's no changing a fast-moving story.
So you can help people change that?
I help people help themselves. I work with people, not for them. And so my whole objective in working with people is to provide tools so they don't need me. Yeah. I mean, I love being needed in some sense, and I know you do, brother. I love that you do. And so, yeah, that's a very powerful process. Lovely. I'd love to open it up to questions if there are any. Yes.
So I'm excited, because I mean, it sounds like I love how you use the saw as, the journey. That's amazing. You've been teaching for a while, but it seems like it's relatively new that you've stepped into coaching and also mentor?
I've been mentoring around the fire for a long time, and in that space, less formally.
Yeah,
And
well, I'm really excited that you're doing that because you have so much knowledge amassed in so many different ways that being fellow, like we don't have children, right? So to step into that mentoring elder type of space and providing that for the younger generations, like I just want to hear like what that means to you.
It means everything. It's that seed that I plant that the fruit of which I will not harvest. I mean, that I think poetically says it really quite well. I went to a convention recently, and there's a young man I've been mentoring for a couple years now who has a mentoring space online that he developed because there was a lack of it in his community, a place for bearing witness, for allowing a space to bear witness to other people's relationships with themselves and the process and journeys that they're on, to actually be able to express it and get feedback from people who have lived experience and hopefully some wisdom that they've garnered from that. And I was there at this conference, and this young man, through some great circumstance, there was a slot opened up on the stage, and he got up there and owned it and stepped into comfortable, direct, and he presented an amazing talk. And for me, having seen this young man before working with me and a few others, and the condensed story that he held on to, becoming effervescent over the years and outwardly expressing as this beautiful young man standing in his power at 24. I wish I had known how powerful I was at 24, and to see this young man step into that on that stage was really it was a seminal moment for me in the realization that what I do in the world with youth matters a lot. And that is every engagement that we have with young ones. It's that, and I have not always been good with this. Ask my niece. She's right here. Yes. One quick note, for anybody who's interested, that program is called Over to the Youth, and it's an online mentoring space that is now doing live events as well. And I will actually, very likely, it's still in negotiation, but be doing a camp out youth mentoring in Canada in September that I highly recommend the space for. It's meant to be geared towards 18 to 25-year-old young men in that transition from youth into adulthood, and that like getting your bearings, taking on the responsibility of moving into being a part of a broader community as an adult. So, your question?
I've been 25 3 times over, and I can still use that.
As my dad would say, I may have had a rotten childhood, but at least I'm having a long one.
So, you spoke about quietude.
Yes.
I can't imagine being quiet without being a great listener. I can't imagine being a mentor or having a mentor who wasn't a great listener. It just seems like, so your little throwaway line to your mom.
Yeah.
I'd like you to talk about that. How can you be a mentor and not just like listen? Or you probably do.
Oh, I did.
Just unpack it for me a little.
So the unpack of that is that we are all being. And in that, we also are being with the stories we carry along with us. And I have not integrated all of them. I haven't...
You mean by listening to yourself?
Yeah. Listening to myself.
Is that the kind you mean?
Well, I feel like it's difficult to listen to others if you have no space to listen to yourself.
I don't think so.
Yeah. And so I think what she was getting at is that in integrating my tendency towards being very terse, direct, and somewhat brash at times, and saying hard things to people, to be mindful of being gentle and using the empathy that we all have more effectively to meet those people where they're at and operate from that place.
Assume you have a,
Discernment.
Yeah, discernment, absolutely.
imagine you have a sit and listen part of you, right?
I didn't get the question.
Sit and listen, sit with a person and listen to
Yep,
them.
absolutely.
That's a little bit different.
Well, the sit and listen comes about all the time when you allow it. So what I'm saying is that there is a, like, in a way, our lives are habituated processes that we use to attribute meaning to our lives, and in integrating those, we can come into rehabituating to better things. And so I'm in that process of all the time of rehabituating myself to better ways of interacting and dealing with people. And I'm unclear on.
I do think discernment is hopeless after a certain, it is with me.
It's hopeless.
But there's also
I'm very
the
direct.
Oh,
kind of listening
yeah.
that is bearing witness. And sometimes someone just needs to have
Yeah.
a listener that is bearing witness. And sometimes someone needs to listen deeply and help untangle. I
Yeah.
think that's what you were saying.
Yeah,
right?
correct. And so, like, in my coaching at times, somebody we read the story we wrote. And one of the main questions is, what does this mean about you? And I have sat there for 5 minutes at a time or more while people sit with that and get uncomfortable. And inevitably something really powerful comes out when it's kind of like creating a weather pattern, actually. That stillness creates a pressure differential. And that pressure differential wants to equalize. And so you're actually creating a space to equalize the pressure within them so that they come to it, right? And that pressure can release and move out and be integrated. Anybody else? Mom, did you have a question for me?
No, I just heard it.
Oh.
Well, I was just admitting things like we're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
We're never going to, not never going to, but there's always something that we can be paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
With listening and stuff like that.
There's always something that we can,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean we will.
Right.
Or you
But,
should.
but as people, we're always growing and we're always learning from other people and then our own experiences as well.
Yep. So, yeah, great. I'm so pleased that you all came. I hope that was helpful and insightful for the lives you live. And I look forward to talking with you guys all again. And I'm going to be here, so if you want to pull my ear about anything, I'm available to that.
And so as Abe said, he'll be doing a workshop the first Saturday of next month.
Mhm.
It's April 5th. Just
Correct.
2 o'clock.
Works for me. And if you do, I would like you to come. If you decide to, bring something to write with and on. So pen and paper.
Also have information on
yeah.
the newsletter.
Cool.
More about that.
Yeah.
And our email list is on the table. And then in the inner room, we have an invitation if you want to plant your own beauty seed. There's little slips of paper in there, and you can choose your words intentionally to write on what seeds you want to plant with your thoughts and your words, and then crumple that little paper up and then plant it in the earth altar on the floor.
You are the queen.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you so much, Abe.
You're so very welcome. Lots of love.